Goeienaand en welkom, dank dat julle ingeskakel het weer eens ter ouder gewoonte op 'n Sondag aand 7uur hier by Klipkop. In laasweek se episode het ons gepraat van Udasua in Ngonomua, van die Kotjokwas, ons met hulle beginne bande bou. Dit smaak my die Kaapens is nou nie meer cool genoeg vir Jan van Riebeeck en die ouens nie. Hulle bou nou bande met die Kotjokwas eerder, so half hulle druk die Kaapman so half een kant toe. Ek dink ek gaan net gou hierdie filtertjies 'n bietjie stel, dat julle my mooi kan hoor, man. Stel die gain op, is al by 6. Ek hoop jy is nou te veel nie. Okay, hy behoort om nou ten minste 'n bietjie harder te wees. Nou voordat ek aangaan, wil ek eers 'n lousie vir die mense in die kletskoolom. Goeienaand Jan van B wat heel eerste was. Alle was goedenavond, Klipkop en maats. Goeienaand Johan van B, as ook Mike Simpson, wat hier sit en wag. Fini sê ook hallo daar, haar battery is pap. Arme Fini. Ek het dan 'n koppie troos hier by my. Ek sien my dingetjie spring alweer so rooi geel. As ek vashak, sorry man. Hoopelik kan ons vanaand die boek afdraf. Ek het net nou 'n tweet gesien, ek weet nie of dit waar is nie, dat Cyril glo weer vanaand praat, maar vanaand Cyril se gat, ek praat deur Cyril. Hy probeer vir die internasionale media sê dat hierdie tipe proteste nie normaal is nie. Dis dan waarmee ek groot geword het, ek weet. Dus hierdie laaste protest was dalk 'n bietjie erger geweest as die voriges, maar ek meen, dit is normaliteit vir ons in Suid-Afrika. Dit is ons normaal. Waar wil ek wees? Ek wil graag hier wees. Dan moet ek hom nou net mooi draai, dan sit ek hom, daar moet hy wees, ja. Hy lyk hom klaar ingestel, wag, maar hy gaan probeer autofocus, waar is hy nou? Properties, configure video, camera control, al die af, en dan stel ek hom so met die hand, dan sê ek van, jy moet daar bly, daai lyk mooi, wacht nog so enetjie, lyk hy nog beter, wacht, nee, maak hom so, dink daai is perfek. En julle kan sien, ek het hier gekrap met die potlood, verskriklik. Vanaand gaan ons leer van Klein Jan, van Harvard en gaan op sy 4de ekspedisie. En wat se storie van Eva, wat gaan trou hierso? Ons begin by van Harvard en ekspedisie nommer 4, Sondag die 10de November 1658. 2 hours before daybreak, the ensign Jan van Harvarden was dispatched for the purpose mentioned with a wagon fully laden with copper beads, tobacco, etc., accompanied by 17 soldiers, to the first or paramount captain Ngonomua, with whom he had traded last time and found the thin Dutch copper wire in demand. He was also accompanied by 2 trustworthy Hottentots belonging to the Kaapmans tribe, the one named Klein Jan, a clever little fellow of about 13, and the other named Sigenman, more than 30 years old, who had previously accompanied the ensign inland and proved to be trusty. They are to serve as interpreters, as Klein Jan did last time on the visit to Ngonomua, where he had been found, and he is able to speak Dutch fairly well. Duman does not dare go with them, as Eva has brought him in bad odor with the Kotjokwas. She had told them that he was always urging us to make war on them with the assistance of the Kaapmans. This makes him stay close to the fort. He dare not go the distance of half a mile for fear of being killed by the Kotjokwas. No one refers to or cares about Harry, but as a result of our action in his case, everyone greatly fears us. Eva, who is in such high favor with her sister, seems to have forgotten her uncle completely, possibly because she is so young, being no more than 16 or 17 years of age. When she was here last, she stated that her sister was going to give her a husband who possessed many cattle and sheep and is a great chief. Time will show the result. Nou natuurlijk ons het laasweek afgeëindig met die Dirck Vreem ekspedisie wat teruggekom het en dat van die 2 Vryburgers het geëiwol. Ons het op daardie bombshell geëindig. Die 2 se name is hier ergens. God, waar is hulle name nou? Ons gaan nou hulle finale name kry. Hier gaan ons nou juist na die Vryburger eiwol storie toe. As it is now quite evident that in spite of the search carried out by the fiscal, the 3 fishermen mentioned before have stowed away on the West Friesland, which is proceeding to Batavië, their land, house, nets and small boat, etc., have been confiscated by the Honourable Company and the following notice posted on their land. Nou, hulle het nou hierdie ding, dis nou Maarten Jochumsen Vlokaard en Jan Adriansen. Hulle is nou die 2, praat hier van faithless en hulle die ouens lelik sleg. Ek gaan net so die highlights. Ek wil graag vanaand met die boek klaar, wel hierdie volume klaar maak. Die mense wat graag die hele stukkie wil saamlees daarso, maar hulle sê hierso, everyone is hereby expressly forbidden to do the least damage to the house or land or anything else of these 3 fishermen. Hulle sê ook, if someone having as yet no land of his own wishes to buy the aforesaid land, 6 morgen in extent, part of which has been ploughed and dug, and a portion planted with vegetables, as well as the boats, tools, and fishing equipment left behind by the fugitives, he is to apply to the commander at the fort at any time. Nou, die praat hulle van die harpe was prevented by the strong south-southeasterly wind from entering the bay. Nou, as gevolg van daai, het hulle nou hierso 'n resolusie gemaak. No freeman, his servants or slaves shall in future be allowed to go on board any vessel, whether belonging to the company or a foreign power. En hulle gesê nou die mense gaan kruip weg op die boot, lekker Batavië toe, en hulle moet nou hierdie wette maak. All, especially the freemen Jan Reinertsen and Leendert Cornelissen, are hereby informed and expressly charged to restore to its place in an undamaged condition within 24 hours whatever they and anyone else have removed from the dwelling of the deserted free fishermen. So die ouens het nie gespeel nie, ek dink hierdie 2 manne het dalk voor die tyd al klaar hulle goeders uitgedeel. Hulle sê, daai uitgedeelde goed kom terug maatskappy toe asseblief. Ek vat gou hier 'n swing van my koffie. Ek sien Brendan Campbell is ook in die kletskolom. Brendan Campbell sê vir ons, Hos pakamis, die hoender is gevries. Een van die eiwal slawe, today the Vryburger Hendrik Boom came to report that one of his slaves had run away during the night and that the one of Visagie had returned quite famished. Hulle sê hier so, not punished if they returned voluntarily. So hulle wil nou so half vir die mense wys, vir die slawe wys, as julle nou uit julle eie wil uit terugkom, dan gaan julle nie so hard pak slaag kry nie. Ons kyk af na die 13de November 1658 toe. One of the sick of the West Friesland who had remained here, named Willem Lambertsen of Waard, formerly an arquebuser, died in hospital today. Nou hier lees ons nou weer van die Vryburgers, wat geëiwal het, die twee wat oor Batavië toe is. Hulle was glo die myn vissermanne gewees. Ek gaan nou nie alles deurlees nie, ek gaan hier van onder af. Pieter Jacobsen of Bodegrawe, who remained here, is equally liable for the debt and consequently claims the half due to him and asked to be allowed to retain alone the fisheries and the remaining property. En dan sê hulle, it has been resolved to grant his request as it is hereby granted to debit his account with the honourable company. So hy vat hulle skuld en alles oor. En hy het nou alleen vissersreg. Net hy mag visvang. Een van die slawe is gevind. Hendrik Boom sent word that he had found his slave among the grain. Hulle het sê ook, where he had been lying hidden out of sheer laziness, which is much in evidence among the slaves. Nie baie goeie woorde vir die slawe gehad nie. Van Harwarden, die Van Harwarden ekspedisie nommer 4. Nou daarso het nou Dumaan het by die fort aangekom met een van die Kotjokwas. En een van die Kotjokwas het nou 'n briefiekie gestuur vir Jan van Riebeeck, of hulle het nou 'n Kotjokwa teruggestuur om die briefiekie te vat, en Dumaan het hom nou natuurlik nou halfpad na die fort toe, hom gekry, en hy escort hom nou net, en binne in die briefiekie staan, Meneer, we have not quite attained our object, though we have obtained 80 sheep and 11 head of cattle from Ngonomua's camp. As we could obtain no more, we were obliged to leave there and proceed northwards until we arrived under the Klip Muts, where we encountered the captain Udasua, from whom we obtained nothing. It is not advisable to visit other tribes as the paths are impassable to the wagon and it would take at least 12 days to reach them. Maar daar het hulle nou die briefiekie. Gaan ek deur. Kom ons lees maar deur alles. Lower down it was written, we will stay here for a day or two, for 2 or more days and then return to the Cape. The morning the Hottentot mentioned was sent back to the ensign Jan van Riebeeck with the following letter. Okay, so hulle gaan, hulle stuur nou weer die briefie terug. From this it is evident that all the Hottentots only sell what they want to get rid of, their worst or worthless animals. This is becoming increasingly obvious from the daily death rate. You are therefore wise not to venture any further inland with the men or delay longer at the camp of Ngonomua or Black Captain, lest you run the risk of being surprised and massacred by him. This they intended doing to you in the interior for the sake of the copper when the Honourable Cunius was there, while his evil deeds of 5 years ago are still fresh in our memories. You may, however, visit the Gorachokwas or tobacco thieves. Dan ons is nog by die 15de November. As the south-southeasterly wind had abated somewhat, the skapenjacht was prepared to be dispatched to the vloed with refreshments. Dit is natuurlijk die tulp wat nog in die baai lê. As the latter vessel had been lying anchored at the entrance of the bay Sunday and had been struggling unavailingly to enter, and also the following letter. Nou, het ek net geonderstreep of wou ek alles deurgelees het? In elk geval, die tulp lê nog daar buite. Nie die tulp nie, die harp. Die harp lê nog daar buite. Van Harwarden ekspedisie nommer 4. Meanwhile, the ensign returned from the interior at about 1 o'clock with 105 sheep and 11 head of cattle. He reported that no more cattle or sheep were to be obtained from either the Kochokwa chiefs, and that at the moment they were retiring ever deeper inland and not staying more than 2 or 3 days at one place. According to the information obtained it would take 3 to 4 weeks to reach the China Hoekwas. They had visited the Gorachokwas en passant, but failed to obtain anything at all from them. It is therefore evident that all are oversupplied with copper and beads, or have sold whatever animals they wish to be rid of. The refuse of their flocks. The refuse of their flocks. This is apparent from the deaths occurring daily. The natives offered as excuse the mortality which had ravaged their flocks this year, of which we have also had some experience, but their cattle are nevertheless as numerous as the grass on the veld, so that they are barely able to subsist on the land. They will not, however, part with any. They had encouraged the natives to collect tusks and also to catch young horses. Hulle sê hier so dis heel waarskynlik kwaggas waarvan hulle praat, which are colored and marked in an extraordinary way seen nowhere else in the world. Hulle sê van die binneland, the prospects of agriculture are good as everywhere in the interior. Fine lands are to be found, which are by no means subject to the strong southeasterly winds. The ensign reported that during his stay in the interior, he had encountered no wind. Good land for agriculture is therefore plentiful at a distance of a half, 1, 2, 3 or more days from here by wagon, and more is being discovered every day. As regards the Hottentots, the position is that as the number of free men increase, we shall have less and less to fear from them. Okay, so nou, hier is nogal 'n belangrike stuk en ons gaan nou later dan weer daarvan lees. Kom ons stel gou hierdie kameraitjie so. Net so effentjies. Asy. Ons gaan net nou weer daarvan lees. So hierso is dit duidelik. Ons lees gou weer. As regards the Hottentots, the position is that as the number of free men increase, we shall have less and less to fear from them. So dit is heel duidelik dat die maatskappy, hulle maak staat op die Vryburgers om 'n buffer te wees tussen die maatskappy en die kooi. Ons gaan nou later dan weer hiervan lees as die Vryburgers 'n petisie ingee, in handig. Hulle het dit genoem in hulle petisie, maar natuurlik Jan het 'n gladde bek. Bietjie van 'n spoiler alert. Ja, ek gaan Brendan Camp, kom ons kyk gou hier oor. Kom ek laat so my entjie, kyk of ek worry. Brendan Campbell sê, dit lyk vir my die woord titel Vryburger, verskoon my Engels, is overrated as fuck. Ons gaan later, dis, jy weet hulle, die maatskappy speel so 'n bietjie met hulle woorde. Hulle speel so 'n bietjie met hulle woorde. Dit is, ek het actually net toe daan gesit en dink, dit is meer van, hulle is nou nie meer employees van die maatskappy nie. Hulle is nou mense wat vir kommissie werk vir die maatskappy. Jy weet, hulle kry nie meer 'n salaris nie. Hulle kry nou net kommissie. Maar dit is waar het eindig basies. Verder is hulle nie vry nie. Nee, hulle kan nie maak wat hulle wil nie. Die kompanie het hierdie grond verklaar as hulle eie. Hulle het beslag daarop gelê. So as daar nou weer in die toekoms gevra is, by wie het Jan van Riebeeck die grond gekoop? Die antwoord is, hy het nie die grond gekoop nie, die maatskappy het daarop beslag gelê. Hulle deur proklamasie het hulle verkondig, hierdie is nou die kompanie se area. Enige iemand wat weer daarmee wil stry, Ons staan hier so, ons kanonne is hier so. Jy kan dit kom probeer afvat, maar dis ons grond hier. So hulle net verklaar, dis ons grond, punt. Proclamation. It's one small step for Jan van Riebeeck. Vlag in die grond gesit, ja. Ons gaan nou aanskryf na die harp toe. Ek het 'n bietjie die harp storie, dis nou alweer. Man, dit smaak met die matrose, tot die kapteins en so aan. Die een ou is dronker as die volgende ou. Dis basies waaroor hierdie storie gaan. En dis bladsye en bladsye, en ek gaan net so hier en daar so 'n woordjie vang. Goed, want ek nou nie eintlik wil belangstel nie. My genade aarde, ek is gewoon vir Tomina Morgul misgelees. Goeie naam Tomina Morgul, wat vir ons die spaaks bring met die emoticons. Ek sien Robert Ferreira is ook hier. Ok, kom ek nip die oukie. Dan stoot ons aan. Ek wil graag, nee, ek wil daar wees. Die skip harp drama, so het ek hom gemerk. So julle weet wat julle nou gaan kry. A boatswain, a cooksmate and 2 soldiers had died and 1 man had jumped overboard, 5 altogether. Nou maar dis nou toe die skipjiekie nou hier aangekom het. Some of the men were suffering from scurvy. There had been trouble between the skipper and the officers. The bookkeeper, on coming ashore, immediately laid various charges, oral and written, against the skipper and handed over to the commander's letter. Hulle sê hieronder, it also appeared that the officers had wished to have greater liberty with the wines than the skipper would permit them. So dit gaan nou alles oor wyn. Dit is 'n dronkbesigheid. Dit gaan nou alles oor wyn. Die mense wat daar wil saam lees, kan maar saam lees. Die zeeleeuw kom terug van Saldanha af met 'n klein huisie vol vis en rop vleis en allerhande sulke tipe goed. En ons gaan nou lees oor gort. The ensign Jan van Harwarden with some of the company's men were busily engaged in reaping barley. Some of the seamen who are agriculturalists were also employed as reapers for a trial and exchanged for others. So hulle wil graag hierdie gort so gou as moontlik oes. Hier is die ander drama van die harp. Hier kan julle nou die charges en goed loop lees. Ek gaan nie alles lees nie, dit is 'n simpel besigheid. Hulle sê tog, the skipper Conwells takes more brandy than becomes a man of his rank. That the chief's mate is as bad as the skipper, if he can only obtain liquor, his drinking bouts lasting 4 or 5 days, and that he would probably always be drunk if he was not subject to authority, so that it is difficult to know which of the two is the better according to the evidence. So sê hulle, to make no change in the chief posts mentioned, and to maintain the skipper in his position with the authority granted to him. Jan sê basis, hier is nou niemand, ek kan nie eens iemand aanstel nie. Julle almal is te gesuip. Gaan aan Batavië toe. Laat hulle daar vir julle uitsort. Hy wil niks meer hiervan uit te waai nie. Daar kan julle, man, dis drama, kak en hare. Julle kan daar gaan loop lees, wat Jan toch gedoen het. Further, some agriculturalists on board are to be exchanged for some of our men. So Jan sê, as die enige boere op jou skip het, geef hom maar jou boere. Ek neem aan, hy het seker van Janne soos Jan Blanks en Erdman Gleuge ontslaag geraak en hulle weer gelaai. Die manne wat Jan nie eintlik wou gehad het hier nie. So 'n paar boere geruil van die skip af. Slangbyt. Today the arquebuser Pieter Bruin of Kaspelhem, left behind sick by the West-Friesland, died. One of the seamen from the Vlug harp, while busy with the others clearing the river in the interior, was bitten by an adder on the side of the foot, which immediately began to swell very much and became inflamed. He became faint, but after he had been brought into the fort, given medicines by the surgeons, and had the wound poulticed. Ek weet nie wat dit is nie, poulticed, wat is dit? The swelling decreased and also the fainting fits. We have reasonable hope that he will recover. The Hottentot surgeons know what to do immediately, but none of them were at hand. Otherwise, we would have made use of them, as we had seen their remedies proved. 'n Briefietjie na Robben Eiland. Hier het nie te veel gebeur nie. Julle kan maar daar gaan lees as julle wil saam lees. Ons trek nou al by die 27ste November, die 8 en 29ste November het hulle so half 'n stoktyk gedoen. 474 sheep on the island at present, which together with the 932 on the mainland brings the number of sheep belonging to the company to 1,406. The freemen have 350, making a total 1,756. The Honourable Company further possesses 420 head of cattle all told, and the freemen almost 200, a total of 600, made up mainly of draft oxen, a few milk cows, and a number of old cows. So dinge gaan aansienlik beter van dat hulle die strandlopers soveel afgevat het. Nou hier is nou weer 'n resolusie. Dit gaan maar oor Robben Eiland. Has resolved to order the men in the forest at once to prepare the timber for a sheep shed 100 feet long and 18 feet broad to provide the sheep on Robben Island with shelter at night during the rainy season. Maar toe hulle bou 'n skaapkraal op Robben Eiland en hulle sê hulle gaan 'n skaapkraal daar by Korenhoop ook bou. It has also been resolved to order the men after the completion of the above mentioned task to prepare the timber for a large kraal at the company's granary. By die grote skuur. Mense wat alles wil loop deurlees, ek gaan daar vir julle los. Is ook, jy weet, interessante rigge goedjies wat julle kan raak lees. En dan die harpe sê tata bye bye, daar die harpe is nou op pad Batavië toe. Ek het nou ek het die geskryf, dis nou mense wat afgedank is en mense wat promosie kry en mense wat in nuwe poste geklee word en so aan. Julle kan maar daar gaan lees as julle wil. Dalk sien julle eie van daar tussen die mense, dalk nie. As julle graag wil daar loop deurlees, daar is dit. Ek het niks te interessant hier gevind nie. O, genade aarde. Hier praat hulle van ons Jan van Riebeeck. Nou, hier is natuurlijk die scriba wat skryf. His vineyard on the Bosheuvel was also a splendid sight as it was growing well. Ek het het geskryf hierso. This morning a certain Jan Boendervoet died. He had arrived here from Zeeland on primo April in the Spreeuw and had been promoted to Master Gardener on 4 September, receiving 14 gulden per month because of his good knowledge and industry. As a result of his death, the company has lost a faithful and zealous servant in that work. In the first year after our arrival, we also lost such a man a few months after he had arrived here. The rest are all lazy, and out of 100, it would be difficult to find two like the deceased. Die baie mooi woorde gehad vir die agriculturalists hier aan die Kaap nie. Die messteek geval, hulle steek mes in die Kaap, mense. The same weather and wind between 10 and 11 o'clock at night, two free carpenters, Peter Paulsen, Klein and Dirck Vreem, fought with knives, and the latter was so seriously wounded below the short ribs that it is feared that he will die. The other fled inland. Nou maar hulle het hom toegekom vang, en toe sê hulle eventually, he openly confessed to the crime. Subsequently, when the provost had gone to fetch the refuge tub, Clay escaped from above the gate with the chain on his leg. Orders were accordingly given that the fiscal and soldiers were to look for him, but he has not yet been found. Ons gaan nou verder lees van Pieter Clay. In the morning, the chain of which mention was made above was found in the veld by the shepherds, the ring having been filed through at the shin. Today, one lean head of cattle and 9 sheep in poor condition were bartered from the tobacco thieves or Goracho. Among them were some of Udasua's men, who were treated with bread, tobacco and brandy as an inducement to come here. Nou, Pieter Clay is nog op vlug. En hier is nou 'n resolusie oor die soutpanne. Hulle sê, for these and other reasons therefore, and because of the fact that the Honourable Commissioner van Goens has left instructions that salt could profitably be sent to India, the Council has, after much deliberation, resolved to hand over the Free Saldanha traders for a trial and for this season all the salt pans at this Cape, big and small, wherever they may be situated. Nou klink dit great, hulle gee hierdie regte vir die Vryburgers, maar die ouens is nie regtig vry nie. They shall not be allowed to sell, present or supply salt to anyone except the Honourable Company. En daar word die pryse ook vastgestel. The Commander and Council of the Fort of Good Hope and the adjoining territory at Cabo de Boa Esperance decree. So hier is nou 'n nuwe decree of 'n wet. En hulle is sommer so half onbeskof daaroor ook. They shall not sell, present, supply, or otherwise dispose of the smallest grain of salt under whatever pretext to anyone except the Honourable Company. Maar daar is nou ook duidelik die maatskappy sê, hierdie is ons grond en ons maak die wette en julle maak net soos ons sê. As julle praat van the land question, sê ja, maar die Hollanders het kom oorvat. Dis is seker dan die Hollanders die eerbare maatskappy. Last night the patient Dirck Vreem died in the company's hospital. Die ouens wat natuurlik met 'n mes gesteek is. Hulle toe die oulik oopsny. Today the body of the free carpenter Dirck Vreem was opened in the presence of the undersigned commission councillors and the fiscal of the fort by the chief surgeon Meester William Robertson. A wound 1 inch in length in the right side of the liver. So die ou se lewer is raak gesteek en as gevolg van daardie is hy oorlede. Waartoe gaan ons nou? Robben Eiland, hulle praat van die kraal. Jan gaan besoek Robben Eiland om te kyk hoe die kraal aangaan. Ek gaan net so vir 'n oomblik daar vir julle neersit. The commander intends to come over with the last load of timber to select the most suitable site for erecting the shed and kraal. So hulle is besig om die hout en goed oor te stuur. Maar hulle het nog self nog nie begin bou nie. Die Jan van Riebeeck moet nog van hulle gaan sê, hier, daar, bou, hier, bou daar, en so aan. The commander left in her for the Robben Island to determine the most suitable spot for the sheds. Okay, dis nou, so wat daar gesê is gaan gebeur, daar sê hulle net, dit het nou gebeur. It was astonishing to see in what good condition the 489 sheep were, for there was no grass anywhere on the island, but only some green bushes growing here and there. Hulle sê op die eiland, the rabbits were increasing well, maar hulle sê no rock rabbits those, want al die dassies opgevreet. En die dassies wou nie teel op Robben Eiland nie. Daar is vir die mense wat nog 'n bietjie wil aanlees en so aan. Hier kom ons nou by die petisie uit. Hierdie petisie is nog 'n lang storie. Kom ek vat eers 'n smoke break. Hoe vinnig 'n smoke break? Not van Boendervoet, beste naam ooit. Wie is Not van Boendervoet? My kwit, hy swart is ook hierso. Goeie vraag, waar is Shack Dweller? Jong, ek is deesdae lus om weer politieke propaganda te swaai. Die goed wat ek sien in sosiale media. Hey man. Kom ek gaan terwyl ek so eentjie kap. Gaan so vinnig deur my Twitter feed. Ek minimize gou daar. Kom ek kyk of ek nog onthou hoe. Desktop. My genade aarde, daar is hy. Nou ek sien, hierso was nou 'n tweet gewees. Trots Afrikaans, ons mooi taal is vandag 95 jaar terug in 1925 amptelik erken. Deel as jy lief is vir jou taal. En jong, die mense het 141 retweets, 11 quote tweets, 338 likes. Man, en is net die grootste ding ooit, ons taal is nou. Maar as jy het gaan opsoek, eerste ding wat jy moet agterkom, wat is 95 plus 1925? Jy kom ons not te fok by 2021 uitkom met, as jou laaste getalle 5 is nie. En die datum is ook heel verkeerd, die datum wat Wikipedia gee. Op die 8ste Mei. Nee man, waar kom ek nou uit? Op die 8ste Mei 1925. 338 likes. 141 retweets. Vir fake news. Kan julle nou meer? Kan julle nou meer? Ek moet nog na die ding toe gaan, man. Nou, ek wou geweet het. Ek wou geweet het, hoe werk die sielkunde agter impuls retweets? Die ou nogal en, wat hulle maak, nee? Vraag maar terug, en wat? Ek het my gesê. Ek het maar vanaand vir julle stalker eyes, Jan van Riebeeck gegee. Ons kom nog hierby. Hier is die mense wat die petisie geteken het. Kyk daar, Steven Jansen, Casper Brinkman, Frans Gerritsen, Herman Remayene, Jan Martens, Johannes Rietveld of Bredenrode en Jacob Kloeten het dit geonderteken, maar Hendrik Boom, Simon Inteveld, Jan Reinertsen, Otto Jansen of Vrede, Jacob Roosendal, Wone Cornelissen en Pieter Versagie was net in staat om merke te maak. Dis maak my hierdie mense kon nie hulle name geskryf het nie. Of lees ek het verkeerd? Hoekom sal hulle net 'n merk los? Was dit cool geweest om net 'n merk te hê daai tyd? Ek dink hierdie mense kon nie hulle name skryf nie. Hoe vry was die Vryburgers werklik? Hierdie is nou ook by ons kom nou, hierdie is nou artikel 6 van die Vryburgers wat hulle gesê het. Kyk die besigheid. South Africa signed the petition Other African. South Africa team versus other African countries. We are led by idiots. Majority of these white can't even play sport. They were put there because of their skin color. Nou ek het lanklaas iets so rassisties gehoor. Nou hulle wou 'n hashtag begin het. Waar is die hashtag? A White Olympics of so iets. En ek wil dit graag vergelyk met Adam Katsevelos. Hy het mos daar 'n videoetjie gemaak waar hy 'n weerberig gedoen het van 'n Griekse eiland. En hy het dit vir iemand aangestuur en hierdie persoon het dit aangegeef vir die media en dit het geontplof. Terwyl hierdie ou Dlamini TS, kyk die ou is glo 'n prokureur. Hy gee nogal sy telefoonnommers en goed ook. Admitted attorney of the High Court of South Africa. Maar dis normaal. Dis die normalisering. Dis normaal om rassisties te wees teenoor wit mense. En dis wat ek nog altyd probeer sê het. This is what systemic racism means. The person feels emboldened to tweet such nonsense because of the narrative that political leaders are setting and encouraging. Here they are even mentioned by name. En die sê hulle, Mbulula was right, if we cannot transform, we might as well stop participating. The point that this is because many public schools have no facility is false. Many blacks, maybe even more than whites in numbers, are in private schools. Yet we must tolerate this nonsense. Kom alles van die politieke leiers af. Kaal neus. Mense, dit smaak my die struggle gaan weer ondergronds. En ons almal kan onthou wat laas keer gebeur het toe die struggle ondergronds gegaan het. Nou, mense is tyres om die nekke gesit en aan die brand gesteek. Ek gaan maar dat julle self vir ons vriend Kaal Neus gaan opsoek. En dit het gesneeu in Kimberley. Kan julle dit glo? Ok, ek het nou eens genoeg tos gepraat. Kom ons sit gou weer hierdie ouetjie aan. Alright. Ons is nou weer terug by die boek. Is daar nog dalk iets wat daar gesê is? Kom ek trek dit vir julle weer hier op. Alles gaan oor dopamine addiction, validation en cognitive dissidence. Die online thing is dood, het mense wêreldwyd mal gedryf en vernietig. My genade aarde, hier kom Shack Dweller waar 80's in. Goeienaand, shack dweller. Jy het die messtekery gemis. Het jy al van jou tabak gerook? Daai tabak het sommer sleg uitgekom. Oeh, sissa. Goeienaand, shack dweller. Ek gaan nou. Hey, as ek dalk poep, verskoon my net. Ek kan hom nie beheer nie. Die spiere onder werk nie meer so lekker nie. Ek wonder of ek met 'n sigaret in die bek kan lees. Ek sit in gesels en nou eintlik so lekker. Ons kom nou by die petisie uit. Ek beloof. Okay, had ek krag in my mag. Die mense wat na harder kyk en fast forward, is seker baie die mekaar op wat 'n screen moet hulle nou begin. Okay, hier begin ons met die petisie. In the morning it was still blowing strongly. At midday the Vryburger councillors Stephen Jansen of Wageningen and Hendrik Boom of Overtoom delivered to the commander a petition reading word for word as follows. We, the burger councillors and undersigned freemen, none of us expected, respectfully submit to the Honourable Jan van Riebeeck, Commander-in-Chief, and his council at the Cape of Good Hope, that according to our agreement, ek weet nie hoekom was daai een gewees het, die volgende een gewees het, maar alles wat julle hier in hakies sien, is hoe Jan van Riebeeck gerespond het op elkeen van hulle vrae. So hier respond Jan van Riebeeck nou en sê op die eerste een, in the beginning the petitioners pretended to be respectful, but later it appears that they intend using coercion. Nou sê die Vryburgers, we became free to support ourselves by agriculture for the periods stipulated in our title deeds. We became freemen so that we might trade with the Hottentots without hindrance in cattle and in other articles, nothing excepted. But now that we have become free and have slaved on the land, the trade is forbidden to us. En hulle, Jan van Riebeeck had reply, their title deeds and conditions were read out to them when it was made apparent that they became free on condition that they were to submit to all rules existing or still to be made by the local authorities, which would be subject to confirmation by our lords and masters in the fatherland, to whatever else their honours might further direct, and also to the letters of freedom and title deeds originally signed by the Honourable Commissioner van Goens, and those conditions made with his honour and which have often been read out to them. Man, ek kan vir julle nog sê, al die goed, die maatskappy, gee hulle net so die backhand. Yes, what is more, we are not allowed to barter from them any meat which the Hottentots may bring now or henceforth. Nou, maar hier sê hulle weer, dit is die lords and masters het gesê, dit is hoe dit moet wees. So Jan van Riebeeck self het nie eintlik 'n sê in die storie nie. Die Vryburgers sê ook, when the Honourable van Goens was here at the Cape, it was said that we should have the best animals to practice agriculture, but we have the worst. Some have oxen the size of mastiffs, natuurlijk honde, and other old carcasses for cows. It is impossible to work with these, but we have to make shift with them until we obtain others. Jy sê die maatskappy, ja, dit is nie hulle probleem nie, die Vryburgers is verkeerd. Sesden sê die Vryburgers, we have cultivated a portion of land with these animals. We have reaped the harvest and brought it home. Every day now we must get busy threshing our wheat and barley. Therefore, we burger councillors and Vryburgers make known that before delivering our grain to the Honourable Company, we shall want to know what we are to get for it. We hold the wheat to be worth 10 guilders per mate, while the barley will be determined in due course after consultation, for we cannot as yet fix a price. We do not intend to sell the wheat for less if we are compelled to do so. We are determined not to cultivate another foot of land. Therefore, we require a price to be fixed, and what is more, a written guarantee from your honour and your full council to be entrusted to the burgher councillors, on which we can rely. We believe nothing any more, for we are put off on all sides with fine words, but the deeds are wanting. Vir die mense sê, hulle weet nie of het eers nie moeite werd is om te groei nie, want die maatskappy, hulle doen prysfixing die hele tyd, en hulle weet nie eens of het die moeite werd gewees van hulle, om het te probeer nie. Hulle antwoord, here these people are apparently trying to force the hand of the honourable company, and they have accordingly been told to leave the making of the laws to the authorities empowered thereto by the company. They were told to behave as behoves obedient servants, and not to compel the company in any way or to threaten it as has now been done pretty seditiously and rebelliously. The honourable company feeds them, provides them with everything, and raises them from a lowly position at great expense to itself and with great difficulties. If they consider that their wheat is worth 10 guilders per mate, there would be little objection to bargaining about it, but a threat to the effect that if the company is not prepped to pay that price, they do not intend to cultivate any more land, is an act of force and cannot be tolerated by the honourable company from its subjects. Everyone is therefore warned to desist from this, lest the honourable company be compelled to take the necessary steps to suppress this movement. So hier was nou ook 'n coup attempt gewees. So wil dit vir my lyk, dis amper asof die jaar 2021 speel homself nou weer oor. Ag, die jaar 1658 speel homself nou weer oor. Nou hier met hierdie coup attempt. Nou, die Vryburgers. Number 7. For instance, the ensign tries to buy our wheat for 4 guilders per mate, also with the intention of defrauding us. Nou, ek het gou hierso dadelik deurlees, en dis maak my, dit was net een keer gewees van 'n Harman Remayenne glo 'n sak vrot koring koop het. Ek sê ja, maar die koring is half vrot. Jy kan dit maar vat vir 2 gulden, 4 gulden, jammer. Nummer 8. But we do not intend to sell our wheat for less than the sum stated. Maar dit gaan basies alles oor die graanprys. Hulle het 'n probleem dat die graanprys gefiks word. Therefore fix a price at an early date, for as long as we do not know the price, we shall cultivate no land, and we do not wish to be slaves of the company. En hulle antwoord dat the company cannot allow its subjects to prescribe laws or fix prices on anything. Julle kan maar daar gaan verder lees as julle wil. Nummer 10. Just calculate what expenses we have to incur annually. The one has 3 servants, the other 2, and all have to be paid, so that if we do not get more than 6 gulden for our wheat, we cannot make ends meet. En dit is net basies dieselfde storie oor en oor en oor, en dit is nou die lords en masters wat sê, hierdie is nou wat julle gaan kry vir julle goed. Mense wat daar wil op deurlees, kan daar loop deurlees. Ons maak met daar was 'n bietjie confusion gewees met Hendrik Boom en die het dit gesê en daai het dat gesê en ons maak met daar was 'n kommunikasiegaping gewees en allerhande sulke goedjies. No blame will be attached to them, ensovoorts, ensovoorts. Want kyk wat sê die Vryburgers nog. For instead of being helped, we are oppressed. They were told to point out the oppressors, whereupon they remained silent, as no one was prepared to do so. They stated that they did not mean it that way. Also that the document, when read out to them, had not struck them as being so violent and strong. Nou, nummer 12, hier was die belangrike deel. Nevertheless, if we do not get a fixed price of wheat for our wheat, we shall bring back all our cattle and slaves and everything else in our charge, for we are unwilling to remain in this condition. After this threat had been heard, they were asked whether they would be willing if the price fixed by our lords and masters were made known to them, irrespective of whether they considered it too little or adequate to deliver their grain for it, and as upright burghers to continue with the ploughing on the strength of the promise made by the commander long ago and often repeated by him, that he would try, if possible, to obtain a higher price for them. When they replied yes, the last letter of the Lord 17, dated 16 April 1658, was then produced and the following extract read out to them. And in order that the freemen may know at what price they will be able to dispose of their grain crop, which they are bound to deliver to the Honourable Company, we have decided to authorize you to purchase from them for the present the grain mentioned at the following prices: a last of rice at from 70 to 100 guilders, a last of wheat from 70 to 100 guilders, a last of rye from 50 to 70 guilders, every last calculated at 3,600 pounds. Nou ek weet nou nie hoeveel pond 'n muitsak is nie. So ons kan nou nie die wiskunde loop doen nie. In elk geval, hulle sê, and smaller quantities in proportion. So dit is duidelik hierso dat die Here 17 het gesê, hierdie moet die pryse wees. Ek weet nie hoeveel 'n kat Jan van Riebeeck wou gevat het nie. It was immediately evident that they lost heart and became quite despondent. But the commander gave them heart again by stating that, as before, he intended and promised to represent to the Lord 17 that they could not exist on those prices, and that he would, by means of respectful request on their behalf, do his best to obtain a higher price. This seemed to hearten them again somewhat. Nommer 13, hulle kla oor die hout ook. For we cannot obtain our provisions unless we give a good surety. We were not told before that we would have to give sureties for our food, but were told that we were to pay in grain what it had been reaped. We therefore do not wish to be compelled any longer, for we were forced to sow peas, barley, beans, and maize, otherwise the depot would be closed to us. There it is all lying now. We have been unable to dispose of it. Therefore, if we are to remain on the land, we refuse to be compelled in our agricultural operations or in anything whatsoever. Maar die mense wat nou die goed wil op deurlees. Ek meen, Jan van Riebeeck het niks nonsens gevat nie. Hy praat hier van to be the laziest up to now, you know, weet. Die mense van die Harmans kompanies maak my, hulle is verskriklike lui mense. En hier die maatskappy 'n lang stuk geskryf. Julle kan maar daar loop deurlees. Jan van Riebeeck homself, ons gaan nou vir Jan van Riebeeck homself uit sy mond uit hoor wat hy te sê het. We suffer great danger from the Hottentots, who may cause us great loss at any time. This does not affect the company, as we are the defenders of our land. Nou, onthou nog aan die begin van die episode, toe was dit duidelik dat die maatskappy staat maak op die Vryburgers om 'n bufferzone te maak tussen hulle en die kooi. Nou hier sê hulle, ewe skielik, nou flip-flop hulle. Sê, nee, ons het die kooi heeltyd, julle beteken niks nie. Maar vroeër het hulle gesê, ja, maar hulle maak 'n bufferzone tussen ons en die kooi. Weet, hulle noem natuurlik die forte, die kanonne en so aan wat geplaas is rondom die graanvelde vir hulle beskerming. Nommer 15, die Vryburgers sê dat the position therefore is that when we ask for something we require, we expect to get it, as we were promised that whatever we asked for would be granted. We were told that we should get free fuel, salt, and what else we required for 12 years. Also our rations of meat, pork, rice, oil, vinegar, and the right of slaughter. Further, that we could have our wheat ground to our satisfaction. We therefore desire the commander to show us a wood where we may freely fetch timber so that everyone may make what is necessary. It was also said when the Honourable Van Goens was here that the freemen would receive sheep, even if they wanted 1,000 sheep. Now, however, we can get none unless we pay cash. And the Lord knows we have no money. It is always money, but no money is received. Hulle maak nog 'n subnota hierso. It is true that up to that time they had received no payments in cash. Produce delivered by them to the company was simply accepted in the diminution of their debts. So hierdie ding van kredietskuld, dis nie 'n 2020 ding nie, dis nie 'n ons generasie ding nie. Dit kom al van ten minste 1652 af. We were promised that we would be helped, and if we are not, everything will be abandoned, one thing with another. Nou maar daar gee die maatskappy nou ook 'n lang verduideliking. Mense wat daar wil op deurlees. Hulle sê glo ja, maar daar is 'n hout, al die een sekere woutjie was daar vir hulle gewees, hulle kan hulle goed kap. Maar ek voel ook so half soos ek die boek gelees het, het ek nou wragties hierso. Die ding is, die maatskappy gaan hier deur 'n verskriklike lang verduideliking. Die mense wat na die tyd wil gaan lees, julle kan maar gaan lees. Van my wat net belangrik is, hulle het hierdie ding ingegee en so aan. Oorgehandig aan Jan. Snaaks, they say, it appears that some of the present farmers would like to have the game in their own hands and so create a monopoly. As even yesterday, some of the strongest cows were given to them for the yoke in the place of oxen. Ja, hierso in 1658, toe was daar ook 'n coup attempt gewees. Die manne wil 'n monopoly hê. For we see that the ensign takes the best milk cows out of the kraal and also Hendrik the tailor, whilst it has never been laid down that they should have the cattle. We became free on the promise that we should receive the very best, not they. Hier sê hulle ook, is die waar, so en so en so. Ons gaan nou uit Jan van Riebeeck se bek homself hoor. Wat is nou die eintlike waarheid? Of sy waarheid eerder? Maak my ou Janne man het ook maar 'n lekker gladde bek gehad. Hy het die manne maklik gevlei. Nommer 17 sê die Vryburgers, we also request that we may be allowed to go on board when the ships have been in the roadstead for 3 days, free and unhampered, without being obliged to obtain the permission of the fiscal. Nou maar natuurlik die ouens wat geëiwol het na Batavië toe, het nou die storie 'n bietjie opgenek in die mense, hier Martin Vlokhart en daai ouens. So hulle word nou nie meer toegelaat op die skepe nie, en dit is nou maar net dit. So sal dit wees. Nommer 18 sê hulle, therefore as stated henceforth, We wish to know soon what we are going to receive for our wheat and barley. Natuurlijk, this has been answered above. 19. We also request especially to be allowed to barter cattle from the natives. Then we shall be able to obtain some to get on with. The company's kraal is at present full of cattle, but we can get none of them. We therefore ask to be allowed to trade and desire an answer to this petition. We have nothing more to add. Nou maar hier sê hulle, ons gaan nou die daar sê hulle gaan die trade seermaak. Volgens my is dit 'n groot probleem hoekom die koei nie regtig waar skaap wou geruil het met ons, wel ten minste die Kaapmans en so aan. Want daar was pryse gemaak gewees en hulle wou nie daai pryse betaal nie, so die maatskappy wou nooit gekoop het nie. Maar dan wonder hulle hoekom kon hulle nooit die mense kry om die goed te kom verkoop nie. Daar's natuurlik al die handtekeninge. So hulle wou die mark, jy weet, pryse vasgestel en die Vryburgers hou nie daarvan nie, die koei het ook nie daarvan gehou nie. En ek dink dit is die grootste probleem waarmee die maatskappy gesit het. To all the free farmers who had signed and who had been summoned and were present in the council room, these answers were given in reply to every point of their request and were read out 3 times, word for word, clearly and distinctly. Upon this they acknowledged that they had greatly blundered and accordingly begged the commander not to take it too greatly amiss, for they now clearly saw that they had not only made a mistake, but that the commander had always acted in their interest and in a spirit of goodwill towards them, and had ever endeavored as far as possible to help them on their legs. The commander thereupon told them substantially the following. Nou hier praat Jan van Riebeeck homself nou. Now then, friends, as far as I personally am concerned, I can easily overlook the matter, but the honourable company will take it amiss that you have endeavoured to force its hand, and it will be greatly annoyed at your blunder, whereby you have run your heads against the wall. I wish that you had taken better counsel, but there is still time to do so, and you are therefore advised, for your own sakes, henceforth to do your best with the plough. Otherwise the replies of the Honourable Commissioner van Guns to the memorials of myself and the first freeman are ready for you, that those who will not cultivate for themselves will be made to till for the Honourable Company. Dan maak jy het nou duidelik, as julle nie wil boer nie, dan kom werk julle weer op ons plase. Besides, a number of other men are already waiting to take the ground, should it be confiscated, to punish some rebellious freemen, and they are even prepared to pay rent for it. Everyone is therefore warned henceforth to take care of what he is about. I promise with my usual goodwill towards you to do my best with the Honourable Commissioner expected soon from India, and in my letters to our lords and masters to try on your behalf to get the price increased somewhat. Be industrious in ploughing and don't let the threshing floor grow cold. Hulle het nogal die Hollandse stukkie hieronder gesit. Laat maar de ploeg wakker zijn gang gaan en de dorsvloer niet verkouden. Take care that in the ploughing of the company's lands and my own I do not surpass you, for it is my intention to set about it with great diligence. Thereupon everyone's courage seemed to revive, and all promised to do their best, were treated to a runner or two of wine by the commander. Let them have cake. Peace and quiet having been restored, everyone went home in good spirits, the one chaffing the other, because the grievances of all had been correctly dealt with. Nie een van hulle goed is, jy weet, nagekom nie. Almal het gesê, nee wat, bogger off, en hulle het geloop, well contended. Dis wat in die boek staan. Wie is ek om te stry? Wie is ek om, mense hierdie boekie is amper op sy einde, en ek weet, Ramapia haar praat vanaand, maar ek maak vanaand hierdie volume klaar. Hier sien, ons gaan nou hier oor First Christmas Day, ons sal in December. First Christmas Day, Second Christmas Day, Third Christmas, maar daar word niks tot hierso, Robben Island, hulle stuur 'n brief vir Robben Island toe. Hulle sê nie eens Merry Christmas op die einde nie. Kersfees was nie 'n ding gewees in daai tyd nie. Hier het hulle 'n stoktyk gedoen van al die Vryburgers se bees en skaap en daai tipe goed. O hel, kan ek hom nou inpas hier? Vir die mense wat 'n screenshot dalk wil vat. Ek hoop maar, hy bly in fokus daarso. Daar is die subnotas vir die wat daaroor gewonder het. Ons kan nog 'n klein stukkie oor Eva ook kry nou. Hulle sê tog hierso, a total of 238 head of cattle and 348 sheep is therefore in the possession of the farmers. Nou, is nog 'n stukkie oor Robben Island, wat nie te interessant vir my was nie. Ag man, ek het die gemis. The Kotchokwas brought 23 sheep and reported that their chief Udasua, brother-in-law to Eva, had been severely bitten in the arm by a lion, and that Eva would again visit the commander in a few days' time. Nou hier was die ding, hierdie Udasua wat gebyt word deur 'n leeu, en Eva wat terugkom, daardie twee, goed, is verwant. Julle sal nou sien hoekom. Die mense wat vir Cyril wil loop kyk, moet vir Cyril loop kyk. Ek is min gespin. O genade, is my? Ja, hy loop hom nog. Ek sien die mense praat oor hulle aandetes. Ek sien, is 'n Sandy in die kletskolom. Goeienaand, Sandy, dankie dat jy ook ingeskakel het. Ek sien, julle praat oor die mastiffs. Hulle het actually, hulle het so 'n subnota gehad hier. Kan nie lekker onthou, was een van by die hierso. Blikkers dogge, a bleacher's mastiff. These dogs were originally used by the bleachers to draw the carts containing washing. Ek het so 'n manier, ek het gesien die Hollanders hier, dat ook maar so 'n simpel sin vir humor, wat ek ook het, hulle is baie lief met woorde te speel. So die sê ding, hulle het die hasepad gekies. En toe, ek weet van die mense het eendag teruggekom van Dassie Eiland af, met amper niks robpelse nie. Toe sê hulle daarmee met die robbe, hulle het die robbepad gekies. Sien, hulle gebruik nie woorde nie, hulle gebruik uitdrukkings. Ek is ook lief daarvoor om uitdrukkings te gebruik, maar daar is party mense wat niks daarvan hou nie. Dis ongelukkig hulle probleem daai. Die uitdrukkings beskryf hom maar net soveel keer beter. Kom ons sit hom weer hier op my gefriet. Shaq Dwell sê Cyril se moer. Ja, so ek meen, jy kom vir Cyril ook loop kyk, ek meen, ek is net nie geplan nie. Gaan net sê van, wat 'n great president hy is. En Suid-Afrikaners moet video's van hulle self neem, hoe hulle bid en saam staan, jy weet, dat Cyril Ramaphosa nie sleg lyk in internasionale media nie. Watter uitdrukkings, soos ek net nou gesê het, in plaas van dat hulle gesê het, die robbe het die hasepad gekies, toe sê hulle somme, hulle het die robbepad gekies. So asof die term die hasepad kies een ding beteken, maar nou dat hulle robbe geleer ken het, is eintlik meer gepas om vir 'n rob so te sê, want hulle hardloop gou weg. Smaak het my. Hulle hardloop gou weg. Ok, kom ons sit nog weer op hierso. Ons nou hier geëindig waar Udasua gebyt is deur 'n leeu in die arm. Nou hierso is nog 'n Robben Eiland stukkie. In die Robben Eiland stukkie waar ek nie veel nie. Julle kan maar daar gaan lees as julle wil. Nou hier kom nou die bombshell. Nou die storie word op een manier geskryf, maar ek het so 'n paar ander afleidings gemaak. Ek moet seker nie afleidings maak nie, maar hier is hy nou. Towards the evening, the interpreter Efa arrived at the fort with some people belonging to the Kochokwa tribe and 21 sheep, which were bartered from them for copper, tobacco and beads. They confirmed the report received yesterday that their chief, Udasua, Efa's brother-in-law, her sister's husband, had been so severely bitten in the arm by a lion that it was feared that he would die of it, as he could eat little or nothing. This would be unfortunate, as he was well disposed towards our nation, better than the other Kochokwa chief, Ngonomua. Udasua had met with this accident while he was out with a large number of men in response to the repeated exhortations of Efa to catch young horses and to shoot elephants for the sake of their tusks. Nou daar sou ek net die geonderstreep het. Hierdie is vir my die belangrikste stukkie. So Efa het geweet die Hollanders ja. Hier is nog nou. Efa het geweet, die Hollanders soek olifantstande en pelse en leeu tande en pelse en allerhande wild en daardie tipe goed. So Efa het nou die mense aangehit. Nou sy is nou ook in hierdie Christen geloof ding ingewerk en so aan. En dit smaak my, hulle het nou spesiaal vir die Hollanders, het hulle geloop jag. En toe hulle ou grote konings is toe in die arm gebyt en dit smaak my die ou gaan nou dood. En snaaks genoeg, ironies genoeg, is dit nou een van die chiefs met wie Jan en sy span nou lekker oor die weg kom. Hulle hou nie van Ngonomua nie, hulle hou nie van die Kaapmans Gogosoa nie. Hulle hou van hierdie chief. Nou as gevolg van Efa wat nou die gospel loop verkondig het, is hierdie ou nou noodlottig gewond. On the way, they had come upon a lion, of which there are many in those parts. It had rushed straight at Udasua, and at once struck him down, jumped on his body, and bitten him in the arm. All the men courageously sprang upon the lion. One seized him by the ears, others by by the mane, the tail and the legs, while some tore his mouth open with their hands, and so drew the teeth of the brute out of their chief's arm. Thereupon they killed the lion with assegais. This misfortune destroyed their inclination to catch horses and elephants, and it will be difficult to induce them to attempt that again. Udasua would have much wished before his death to visit the commander, but the distance was so great and fresh water was so scarce along the way in consequence of the drought that travelling would have entailed suffering thirst and braving difficulties and danger from the presence of lions. Eva therefore decided not to return for the present, but to stay here for some time to learn more of our religion on the suggestion at the request of her brother-in-law, her sister, and other people. Okay, nou hier sal sien, ek dink nie Eva was baie populêr geweest tussen haar spannetjie daarbo, nadat Udasua sy arm afgebyt is, nadat sy dit aangehits het. Ek het 'n gevoel, hulle het vir haar gesê, boger terug na jou mense toe. Jou mense sit met 'n swak idee. Jy praat van hulle God het nie vir Udasua beskerm nie. Dis hoe ek dink, en nou is sy terug hierso, en nou is dit, ja, maar ek is nou maar net terug om weer te leer van die liewe Jesus en so aan. Ek dink sy is weggejaag daar. Ek dink sy is weggejaag. Her brother-in-law and her sister, etc., had, according to her, learned so much through her that they could feel in their hearts that she had told them of God and his service was true. Udasua had therefore caused instruction to be given to many children by Eva, who taught them to pray and give thanks to the Lord, before and after eating, on lying down to sleep, and on rising. When she spoke about our religion, some had at first laughed, but Udasua had exerted his authority, with the result that everyone had to listen with reverence and none dared laugh any longer. Like him, some were beginning to understand that it was about God that she spoke. Udasua and his wife, Eva's sister, had urged her to be further instructed in the commander's house. Udasua's wife, when opportunity served, intended to visit the commander and her husband. Udasua, should he get well again, would visit the commander for the sake of society. They would come like sister and brother and would bring some little children with them to be left here to be instructed. For this purpose, 9 men had accompanied Eva and at their request been allowed to attend evening prayers and to pass the night in the fort, because they did not like to sleep in the huts of the Kaapmans or eat with them. The Kaapmans and the interpreter Duman scarcely dared to speak a word to these Kochokwas. The interpreter Eva also told us of an unfortunate incident harmful to the company. Chayantima, one of the Chayanahukwa chiefs mentioned before, from whom the Honourable Company has obtained the greater number of cattle in the last 2 years, was on his way hither a few days ago with a large number of cattle. With him was his wife, the tribe of the Chobona. Die Chobona is die mense van goud. Said to be lord of all this land and rich in gold. He intended to show his wife and all her jewels received from Chobona, mentioned in detail last year in our journal. Nou, hulle het gepraat van al hierdie goud en ringe en goed wat sy het. Sy het glo kiste vol van die goed, en sy dra net, jy weet, so 'n paar oorbelle en 1 necklace, jy weet. And in our letter to our lords and masters, to the commander. But on the way, he came across the great encampments of the Kochokwas, consisting of the 2 most powerful troops of the Hottentots under Ngonomua and Udasua. Eva's brother-in-law, also mentioned in detail last year and reported upon in the above-mentioned letter. He was attacked by these Kochokwas and lost the battle. His wife fell into the hands of the enemy and together with others was killed. All her property and jewels, considered by the Hottentots as dirt, were thus scattered and lost. We might have obtained much information from him, so that this incident is a great pity and a very harmful setback to the company. Chayantima saved himself by flight and returned to his chief, the ruler of the Chainahukwas, who is said to have gone to Chobona with his camp to ask for redress for this affront, or for the aid of men so that he could take revenge on the said Kochokwas. The result, time will show. En daarso het ons die boekie kaf gedraf, volume 2. Ek wil nou nie vir julle skrik maak, die boek is hier agter in die kas. Maar volume 3, sien jy, was so 'n bietjie moisture exposure, of ek weet nie wat daai is nie. Maar daar sluit ons nou volume 2 af. Hi! Wat sê papa Sir, hou op hoogte? En ek dink dit is nou dit. Ek het 'n bietjie deur die kleedskool omgekyk. En julle kan maar seker nou aanskryf na Cyril Ramaphosa toe, sê hulle wel. Ek gaan 'n entjie luit. Net so 'n laaste oomblik gee vir enige iets. En wat ook al julle nou post gaan, jy weet, maak nie saak of julle die post gaan afval na die tyd, dit gaan gecapture word hier op die berispe mekaar. Ek sien my top chat is altyd aan. Kom ek sê gou pop out hierso. Dan draai ek top chat afhaal en sê live chat, kan ek dan meer sien. Alles lyk maar vir my dieselfde. Nou maar, mense, as dit is, wil ek vir julle sê, baie dankie dat julle ingeskakel het. Onthou, daar is absoluut geen skaamte daarin om jou kop uit jou gat uit te trek nie. Staan op vir daardie mense wat vir jou opstaan. Dit is altyd vol hart in. Hou koers.